There comes a silent day in your life when your heart finally whispers, "I can't do this anymore." And strangely, that is the exact day everything begins to change. Maybe nobody notices it at first. Not your friends, not the person you kept hoping would come back, not the world that kept spinning while you sat there carrying invisible grief inside your chest. But deep within you, something shifts, because waiting is not always patience. Sometimes waiting is pain wearing the mask of hope. You wait for the text, for the apology, for the closure, for the love that should have arrived naturally, for someone to finally choose you without confusion, without hesitation, without conditions. And while you wait, life quietly passes by your window like rain you forgot to step into. The terrifying part is this: human beings can become emotionally addicted to waiting. We begin to build entire identities around maybe someday. Maybe someday they'll realize your worth. Maybe someday they'll return changed. Maybe someday your life will finally begin. But what if the greatest tragedy is not losing someone? What if the greatest tragedy is losing years of your soul, waiting for doors that were never meant to open again? Carl Jung once said, "What you resist not only persists, but will grow in size." And sometimes what we resist most is accepting that it's over, because acceptance feels like death to the version of you that kept believing. But here is the strange miracle nobody tells you. The day you stop waiting, you stop bleeding energy into the past. You stop chaining your future to someone else's decision, and suddenly life, real life, begins to move toward you again. This video is not about giving up. It is about awakening. And by the end of this journey, you may realize something that changes your life forever. The thing you were waiting for was actually waiting for you to let go first. Part 1. When waiting becomes a prison. There are people walking around every day carrying invisible prisons inside their minds. From the outside, they look normal. They laugh. They post photos. They go to work. They answer messages with, "I'm fine." But internally, they are emotionally paused. Their life has stopped moving because their heart is standing in front of a closed door waiting for someone to open it. Maybe you know this feeling. You replay conversations at 2 a.m. like sacred scripture. You reread old messages searching for hidden meanings that were never there. You imagine future scenarios where everything finally makes sense, and slowly, without realizing it, you stop living in reality. You begin living in possibility. That is the cruelty of waiting. It feeds on imagination. The human mind would rather survive on false hope than painful truth, because uncertainty gives the illusion that the story is unfinished. But some stories ended long ago. Only your heart hasn't left the room yet. Buddha taught that attachment is the root of suffering, not love. Attachment. There is a difference. Love flows. Attachment clings. Love says, "I appreciate what was." Attachment says, "I cannot survive unless it returns." And this is where people lose themselves. They stop becoming active participants in life and become emotional spectators instead. Think about how many dreams die this way. The artist who never starts creating because they're waiting for validation. The man who never heals because he's waiting for one woman to come back. The woman who never discovers herself because she's emotionally chained to someone who already left spiritually years ago. Waiting drains life force. It steals mornings from your future and gives them to memories that cannot love you back. And perhaps the saddest truth is this: the longer you wait, the more sacred the illusion becomes. Because after investing so much emotion, your ego starts believing it has to mean something. But time invested does not transform pain into destiny. Sometimes pain is simply pain, and healing begins the moment you stop romanticizing your suffering. The philosopher Albert Camus wrote, "In the depth of winter, I finally learned that within me there lay an invincible summer." But you cannot discover that inner summer while emotionally camping in yesterday's storm. The moment you stop waiting, you begin returning to yourself. and that return changes everything. Part 2. Why letting go feels like dying. Letting go is one of the strangest forms of grief because nobody prepares you for how physical it feels. People think heartbreak only lives in the heart, but real heartbreak lives everywhere. In your chest, when a memory suddenly returns without warning. In your stomach, when you see their name appear somewhere unexpectedly. In your hands, when you almost text them during lonely nights. In your silence, when you realize there is nobody left to tell your thoughts to. And this is why people keep waiting. Not because they enjoy pain, but because letting go feels like stepping into emotional emptiness. The human mind fears the unknown more than suffering itself. A toxic familiarity can feel safer than uncertain freedom. That is why some people stay emotionally attached to relationships that already destroyed them. Because pain becomes predictable, and predictable pain feels strangely comfortable. Friedrich Nietzsche once wrote, "And if you gaze long into an abyss, the abyss also gazes into you." When you wait too long for someone who stopped choosing you, something dangerous happens. You begin measuring your worth through their absence. Their silence becomes your mirror. Their rejection becomes your identity. And slowly you stop asking, why did they leave, and start asking, what is wrong with me? This is where waiting becomes soul erosion, because the deepest wound is not abandonment. The deepest wound is abandoning yourself while trying to keep someone else. And maybe nobody has told you this clearly enough. Closure is not always a conversation. Sometimes closure is waking up one morning and realizing you are exhausted from carrying dead emotional weight. Sometimes closure is understanding that if someone truly wanted to stay, confusion would not be part of the relationship. Real love does not constantly make you question your value. Real love brings peace, not perpetual emotional investigation. But letting go still hurts because you are not only grieving a person, you are grieving imagined futures. The vacations that never happened. The late-night conversations that will never return, the version of growing old together your mind secretly rehearsed 1,000 times. You mourn possibilities more than realities, and that is why healing feels like death at first. Because a part of your identity dissolves. The person who waited, the person who hoped endlessly, the person who believed one more chance would fix everything. That version of you must emotionally die so a wiser version can finally live. Carl Jung believed that transformation requires the death of the old self. Not physical death, psychological death. The collapse of illusions, the destruction of false identities, the painful awakening into truth, and truth often arrives quietly, not dramatically. One ordinary day, you simply stop checking your phone every 5 minutes. You stop imagining their return. You stop building conversations in your head. And for the first time in a long time, you breathe differently, lighter. Not because you stopped loving them completely, but because you finally stopped abandoning yourself for them. That is the hidden miracle of letting go. You do not lose yourself. You find the self that pain buried. Part 3. The unexpected power that comes after detachment. There is a strange transformation that happens after enough pain. At first, you don't notice it. The mornings still feel heavy. Certain songs still reopen old wounds. Some nights still echo with memories you wish would leave your mind alone. But beneath the surface, something powerful is quietly rebuilding itself. Your energy. Because waiting is exhausting in ways most people never understand. It drains mental energy, emotional energy, spiritual energy. You spend so much time analyzing someone else's behavior that you forget your own life needs attention too. And when you finally detach, all that trapped energy returns home. Suddenly you begin noticing things again. The sunlight through your window, the peace of solitude, the dreams you abandoned while trying to save a collapsing relationship, the hobbies you stopped pursuing because sadness consumed your focus. You remember that life existed before them, and more importantly, life will exist after them too. Lao Tzu once said, "When I let go of what I am, I become what I might be." Most people misunderstand detachment. They think detachment means becoming cold or emotionless. But true detachment is not the absence of love. It is the absence of desperation. It is no longer needing someone to validate your existence before you can feel whole. And that changes everything. Because desperation repels. People can feel when your happiness depends entirely on their attention. They can feel when your emotional world revolves around them. But when you stop waiting, your energy changes. You stop forcing, stop chasing. Stop begging life to unfold according to your expectations. And ironically, this is when confidence returns naturally. Not loud confidence, not arrogant confidence, quiet confidence. The kind that says, if it's meant for me, it will stay. If not, I will still survive. That mindset is freedom. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." For so long, you tried controlling outcomes you could never control. You tried controlling someone's feelings, their readiness, their loyalty, their emotional maturity. But peace begins when you stop negotiating with what is outside your power. There is also something else nobody tells you. When you stop waiting for one specific life to happen, countless new possibilities finally enter. New people, new versions of yourself, new experiences your old pain would never allow you to notice. Sometimes the universe cannot deliver new blessings because your hands are still tightly gripping expired attachments. And maybe this is why some endings feel cruel, because they are not punishments, they are redirections. Imagine holding onto a train that already left the station while another train toward your destiny waits behind you unnoticed. That is what attachment does. It blinds you to the life still trying to reach you. One day, you will look back and realize the person you cried over was never the center of your story. They were only a chapter, an important one, a painful one, but not the final one. And the day you truly understand this, your soul becomes lighter than it has been in years. Part 4. The beautiful life waiting beyond attachment. There is a version of you that exists beyond this pain, a calmer version, a wiser version, a version that no longer wakes up with anxiety gripping their chest, a version that no longer measures their worth by who stayed or who left. But to meet that version of yourself, you must stop standing at the grave of what was. Because life does not move backward. Nature understands this deeply. The river does not cry over the water it already carried away. The seasons do not beg winter to remain forever. Even trees know how to let dead leaves fall when the time comes. Yet human beings often cling to suffering because pain feels connected to love. We fear that moving on means the memories were meaningless, but healing does not erase love. It simply teaches love where it no longer belongs. And perhaps this is the lesson Heartbreak was trying to teach you all along. Not everyone enters your life to stay forever. Some people arrive to awaken you, some arrive to break illusions, some arrive to reveal wounds you never realized you carried, and some leave specifically so you can finally become who you were meant to be. Rumi once wrote, "Why do you stay in prison when the door is so wide open?" Read that again carefully. Because many people are emotionally imprisoned not by reality, but by attachment to a reality that no longer exists. The relationship ended months ago, maybe years ago, but internally, they are still waiting at the same emotional doorway, hoping the past suddenly changes its mind. Meanwhile, life keeps calling their name from the distance. New opportunities, new love, new purpose, new peace. But you cannot hear the future while worshipping the echoes of the past. And maybe this is why some of the strongest people become so powerful after heartbreak. Because once you survive the loss you thought would destroy you, fear loses its control over you. You realize something revolutionary. You can survive disappointment. You can survive endings. You can survive being abandoned. And once you truly understand that, You stop tolerating half-love. You stop begging for clarity from confused people. You stop shrinking yourself to fit inside someone else's emotional limitations. You begin choosing yourself, not selfishly, but wisely, because self-respect is the foundation of every peaceful life. The day you stop waiting is the day your soul finally unclenches, and suddenly the world feels different. Food tastes different. Music sounds different. Silence feels different. Not because the world changed, but because you changed. You are no longer surviving on hope alone. You are finally living in reality. And reality, while painful at first, is infinitely more peaceful than illusion. So if your heart is tired today, if you are exhausted from waiting for someone to become who they promised they would be, listen carefully. Your life is not on pause. Your destiny did not disappear because one person failed to love you correctly. There are still beautiful mornings waiting for you. Still people you haven't met yet who will understand your heart naturally. Still moments of laughter your current sadness cannot even imagine. But none of them can fully arrive while you keep emotionally kneeling before a closed door. So breathe deeply, release the past gently, and walk forward. Because the day you stop waiting is the day your real life finally begins. Maybe closure was never about hearing the perfect apology. Maybe closure was simply the moment you realized you deserved more than uncertainty. And maybe the greatest act of self-love is no longer waiting for people to choose you, when you can finally choose yourself. If this message found you at the right moment in your life, remember this. Some endings are not losses. They are awakenings disguised as heartbreak. And one day, after all the healing, all the tears, and all the lonely nights, you will look back at this chapter with gratitude instead of pain. Not because it didn't hurt, but because it taught you the most important lesson of all. The moment you stop chasing what keeps hurting you, you finally become free.